food to a a raw, balanced raw diet for your dogs, and in my opinion, why it's better, and why I think the switch is very possible, and maybe after the information that I provide here today, you guys can maybe make the switch as well. Everything that I'm going to talk about today is going to be based on what I've noticed in my own dog, and the numbers and the cost that I'm going to talk about are the numbers and the cost that I come into contact with, and the numbers that I play around with and deal with when it comes to buying and supplying supplies for a raw diet. So it's we're gonna make this into a 3-part series because it's it's a lot to talk about. The first part now is gonna be about my reasons why I think a balanced raw diet is beneficial. Is more beneficial, I should say. Now, talking about benefits. That's the number one reason right there. All of the great benefits that a raw diet provides, like better health, longevity. A raw diet, a natural balanced raw diet is so much easier for your dog to digest, so much easier for your dog to utilize, break the protein down, the fats down, and utilize that ultimately as energy. Therefore you'll see and have a more energetic dog. You'll have that dog that's always ready to go, so lively, and that's ultimately gonna make you feel better, because you'll know that you're doing the best by your dog, and something's something's very good, and you're doing something right. So high energy levels, healthier, longer life, healthier coat, a shinier coat. I have a Doberman pinscher, and her coat is just amazing. So the benefits are just wonderful, and I think you and your dog can benefit from the benefits. So my number 2 reason would have to be I think that kibble food is harder to digest, and that came from a personal first-hand experience that I've had, where I fed the dog early in the morning, and around about, I would say, 6 hours later, took her outside to run around, get some exercise, and I noticed that she was just stopping periodically, which was strange. And then she started throwing up, so I walked over. I looked at what she was throwing up, and it was the kibble food, and the kibble just was so undigested. It was intact. The shape, everything was just as if I took it out of the bag and gave it to her. So that kind of triggered a light bulb in my mind that maybe kibble is not the easiest thing to digest. Maybe the dogs don't tolerate it as much, and it made me think a little bit. Reason number 3 for me is bloating. Doberman pinschers are very susceptible to bloating, and when initially making the switch, I've noticed that compared to a kibble diet, that a raw diet does not cause bloating. Her abdomen is not distended. So I personally love that. That it's easy to digest, which was one of the benefits we spoke about. So definitely no bloating factor. the other reason is regulations, and I've been looking into what regulations are available and provided by any agencies for, you know, dog food companies, and they're not regulated by the FDA, and the only regulation that I've seen is the AAFCO, which in my opinion is not any type of legitimate regulation, because it's just so loose. And AAFCO stands for Association of American Feed Control Officials. I just think it's a joke. The regulations they set are not clear cut. There's no clear guidelines and definitions that are provided to pet food companies for them to follow, and because of this, there's different interpretations of what meanings are, and each pet food company is allowed to interpret the information however they want, and this causes a lot of problems, because now everyone has their own definition of what chicken meal is, or what a meat meal is, what a meat byproduct is, and all of this other stuff. And it's just stuff like this should be clear cut, and say when it comes to discussing stuff like this, and if there is a guideline, and if you want to call it a guideline, then we should be able to say that chicken heads and toes and nails and beaks and livers and stuff like that should be called a byproduct and not a meal, and this and this should be a meal and not a byproduct. Guidelines should be clear cut and kind of set in stone, but it's not, and everyone has their own interpretation, and for that reason I just think it's ineffective, it's useless, and it's just another reason why I wouldn't trust the Kibble food. Now, speaking about the AAFCO, one of the things that I've noticed and I've learned upon doing my research is that they allow the use of diseased, dying, or dead, disabled, and deformed animals to be used as a meat source. And I think that this is just, this is despicable. This is outrageous. I mean, why would I want any meat, whether it's the first ingredient or a meat meal or a meat byproduct or whatever they call it? Why would I want the meat to be sourced from an animal that was diseased, dead, disabled, or deformed? I mean, I wouldn't personally eat something like that, and I wouldn't want that to be consumed by my beloved pets. So, it's just one of the things I learned, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that diseased, dead, disabled, and deformed animals are allowed to be used, and it's just crazy to me. So all reasons why I've made the switch. Now the last reason I have here is the price and the cost. I did feed a Kibble food in the beginning, and I always tried my best to feed a more popular brand of food, thinking that I'm going to get a better quality ingredients and just an overall better food. This I've come to learn that it's not true. And if you are one of those people that buy a higher end food like I was, I've noticed that the cost of buying a high end food is very, very similar, or very close in the same bracket of what it costs to feed a raw diet. And so I think it's very easy and very doable to us make the switch. Now, in my personal opinion, sometimes you can even save money from feeding a raw diet, you know, because I was one of those peoples that was feeding, Blue Buffalo, Canaday, Wellness, Merrick, those high-end food brands that cost maybe, $45 to $60 per bag, for a like a 22-pound bag that maybe lasts 4 to 5 weeks. I've noticed that I can sometimes get chicken, you know, at such a price where it's even cheaper than the cost of, Blue Buffalo or Canaday. And, I just think it's a no-brainer. I mean, if the dog is going to do better from having real wholesome chicken, and it's going to also be cheaper for me, then it's a no-brainer. But we'll talk more about cost and, the later parts of this series.